father was part of the major deficit that that province is incurring here today. So will that member stand up here in the House today and apologize on his father's behalf of putting Ontario residents in mass deficit that they probably will never get out of because of that?
Statements by members. Déclaration de député. Honorable député.
The Honourable Member for La Pointe de l'Île. Mr. Speaker, last Thursday was a dark day for Franco-Ontarians and for all Francophones. In cutting the office of the French Language Services Commissioner and in ending the plan for a French language Ontario University, the message from Doug Ford's Conservatives was clear. Francophones are second-class citizens, and this becomes obvious when you compare their situation to that of Anglophones in Quebec. The truth is that in English Canada, the rights of Francophones are tolerated if Francophones are quiet and don't demand anything. But you don't know Franco-Ontarians if you think that they're just going to lie down and take it. They won when the Conservatives wanted to take away Montfort, the only Francophone hospital in Canada outside Quebec, and they will win again if the Francophone and Acadian communities mobilize once again with this government in Ontario.
Speaker, around 1.7 million Canadian families do not have a home that they can afford that meets their basic needs. The 10-year, $40 billion investment our government is making through the National Housing Strategy will encourage the construction of affordable rental housing by providing low-cost loans through the Rental Construction Financing Initiative by giving more Canadians a place to call home. I would like to recognize the invaluable role housing cooperatives play in the lives of the residents of Mississauga Lakeshore and communities across our great nation. In our community, Brooks Co-op, Erin Court Co-op, Indwell, Springfield Co-op, the Peel Halton Cooperative Housing Federation, and the Cooperative Housing Federation of Canada are working hard on this front. I thank them for their leadership, and I look forward to continuing to champion their efforts. Mr. Speaker, housing cooperatives are about much more than affordable housing. They're about building communities where neighbours look out for one another. They're about allowing members to reach their full potential. And, Mr. Speaker, they're about building homes for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Provencher.
Speaker, 2 weeks ago, this Liberal government announced that many border crossings across the country would be reducing their hours of operation, including 3 ports in my riding of Provencher. The earlier closing times will have a profound negative economic and social impact on rural communities and the residents that call them home. It will limit their ability to access employment, health care, and recreation. Public meetings were held after the decision was already made, and many of those meetings pointed to the fact that this government is spending hundreds of millions of taxpayers' dollars on providing services for people who have illegally crossed into Canada, who didn't live here, and have never contributed to Canada. This government has even built them a pathway and welcome centres at our border ports to make it easier for them to cross. All of this while they are reducing services for Canadians who simply want to cross their own border. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister needs to explain to Canadians why he is prioritizing illegal crossings while cutting services to Canadians who, for all their lives...
Honourable Member for Calgary Centre.
Located in the fabulous constituency of Calgary Centre, the Kirby Centre is an outstanding organization that has provided supports to Calgary seniors for nearly a half-century, and they're joining us here in Ottawa today. The Kirby Centre runs multiple invaluable services for seniors, from housing to counselling to social enterprises like the second-hand clothing store. I also have lunch there on many a Wednesday. I am proud that our Liberal federal government supports this dedicated group through programs like the Canada Summer Jobs, the Enabling Accessibility Fund, and the New Horizons for Seniors. All of these programs help the Kirby Centre support seniors in my community. I thank the Kirby Centre for their commitment to bettering the lives of Calgary seniors, and I look forward to them providing services for many, many, many more years to come.
Absolutely. The Honourable Member for Windsor West.
Today I celebrate the remarkable and inspired life of Michelle Prince, who passed away yesterday after 5 very public years of cancer, where she chose to live life to the fullest. Michelle did this despite 3 major surgeries and 80 cycles of chemo administered every other week, all while remaining a champion of spirit and showing her smile. In fact, she raised money for a hospital, created a new program for cancer patients, and produced videos to help coach others. She celebrated positives, and in doing so inspired many to do the same, always fighting, never surrendering to the disease. Michelle is a hero, and her story will remain on guard for those who need light in the times of darkness. Windsor thanks the Prince and Francis families for sharing Michelle with all of us. Your generous gift of time was precious. To her husband Eddie and her children Sienna and Phoenix, I want to offer condolences and solidarity in celebrating Michelle's life. Please know that our community feels this great loss. We will honor her request by living each and every day in the moment. As Eddie shared, Michelle has joined her friends, and they are dancing.
Awesome.
The Honourable Member for Central Nova.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday was World Prematurity Day. My little girl Molly was born 3 months ahead of schedule, 27 weeks plus a day to be precise, and weighed in at just a little more than 2 pounds when she was born. You see, being born this early can come with serious health risks, and I'll never forget the feeling of helplessness that I experienced when I got that call to come to the hospital, or while I watched the nurses and doctors perform a miracle to save her life. I'm very happy to share that today Molly persevered and is a beautiful, walking, talking 2.5-year-old who loves Disney soundtracks and farm animals. Getting to this point wasn't easy though, Mr. Speaker, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the incredible effort that my wife Sarah put in to help Molly become the little girl that she is today. I'm also very grateful for those who helped our family along the way. In particular, I want to thank my colleagues from all sides of the aisle in this chamber who sent messages of support during a time of immense difficulty. I'd also like to thank the talented nurses and doctors at the Ottawa General NICU unit and the Special Care Nursery at the Ottawa Civic Hospital. To every other family who has a preemie at home, I hope you enjoyed yesterday. Hug them a little closer today. And to my little girl Molly, Daddy loves you.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Riverbend.
Mr. Speaker, the Alberta energy industry has been suffering under this Liberal government. They've cancelled pipelines and implemented policies that make it hard for future development of our energy industry. Despite producing some of the most clean and ethical energy in the world, our oil continues to sell at a discounted rate. Cenovus Energy said they produce up to 300,000 barrels every day above what can be exported out of our province. That overproduction leads to a great price differential when compared with American oil, which can get exported to foreign markets. Our oil price discount has cost the country $50 million a day, or $13 billion a year. At an event last week, the Minister for Natural Resources said we need more pipelines. Well, I'm glad he's finally figured it out, Mr. Speaker. Perhaps now this Prime Minister will cancel the tanker ban, cancel Bill C-69, and of course cancel his push for a carbon tax. It's time for a government that will fight for Albertans and fight for our energy sector.
The Honourable Member for Don Valley North.
Mr. Speaker, in 1960, North York residents came together to build a local hospital supported by the Friends of North York General, IODE, Missionary Health Institute, and Volunteer Services. 3,000 volunteers raised over $3 million. On March 15, 1968, an $8.6 million 70-bed community hospital opened at the corner of Leslie and Shepherd. 50 years later, North York General Hospital remains one of Canada's leading community academic hospitals. Its emergency department saw 100,000 visits in 2016 to 17. Congratulations to the North York General Hospital community for making a world of difference since 1968.
And the Honourable Member for Lac Saint Louis.
Last month, I had the pleasure of attending an inspiring evening that combined our national love of hockey with another signature Canadian value, helping one another. The Point Claire Old Timers check distribution evening is a mainstay of the community calendar when proceeds from the League's annual hockey tournament are distributed to an array of local West Island nonprofit groups. Depuis des années,
for years, this annual evening event has been bringing together hockey fans of all ages, as well as various social community groups that see to the well-being of the community.
Total of $100,000. Thank you and congratulations to League President Jamie Wolak, Vito Pelosi, the MC for the evening, who as usual did a terrific job, to members of the donations committee like Lauren Pearson and Jack Beaumont, and to all the players that make the Point Claire Old Timers a great hockey franchise.
The honourable member for Peace River Westlock.
Mr. Speaker, every single month Canadians spend $300 million to fund a regime that abuses human rights and murders journalists. Why? That's because Canada buys oil from Saudi Arabia. This is shameful that we buy Saudi oil when we produce our own ethical oil right here in Canada. Not only do we buy unethical oil, we also lose millions in revenue because Alberta's oil sands are landlocked. Mr. Speaker, Western Canadian Select was recently selling for as little as $12, but on that same day, Dubai crude oil was selling for $63 a barrel. No wonder the United States wants to keep Alberta's oil landlocked. What a discount they get. The price differential means that millions in lost revenue could provide clean drinking water for First Nations, build long-term care facilities for our seniors. Mr. Speaker, Canada gives away a school a day and a hospital a week in lost revenues. Canadians do not support human rights abuses and murder. We need to build pipelines and buy Canadian. It's time to stand up for ethical oil.
The honourable member for Vimy. Mr. Speaker, good afternoon. I had the pleasure of joining the 250 members of the deaf community who attended the gala to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Metropolitan Montreal Deaf Community Centre that was held in my riding of Vimy on Saturday, October 27th. The MMDCC is an organization whose mission is to create a better world for the deaf community. These people, most of them illiterate, live on income security or unemployment, are often victims of various abuses, and face much isolation. I was delighted to celebrate the only organization that offers so many services to the deaf community of the Greater Montreal area. Once again, congratulations to Mr. Gilles Reid, Executive Director, and to the board members of the MMDCC for their accomplishments over the past 40 years and for their important work in raising awareness. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Mission Matsqui Fraser Canyon.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to thank Minister Goodale and Minister Blair for $86 million funding to combat gun violence. I know in my riding this money will be appreciated as rising concern about gun violence have been a major issue for quite some time, in which I discussed with Minister Blair when he visited my riding. Like many ridings in our country, Mission Matsqui, Fraser Canyon is close proximity to U.S. border. This funding will be crucial to stopping illegal firearms entering into our country and into the hands of gangs. My riding is no stranger to the perils of gun violence, and I'm committed to ensuring that my constituent and all Canadians can live without fear of gun violence. I am thankful to represent a government that is committed to addressing gun violence with real tangible action. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Charlesbourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister's solution is quite incredible. We have to immigration at the borders is quite incredible. But the Prime Minister has refused to follow up on our recommendations, and yet they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on illegally entering immigrants. The Prime Minister seems to think that this chaos at the border is not a threat to Canadians. Furthermore, only a small number of people have been deported. His contribution makes us doubt his commitment to our values. The Prime Minister has a twisted idea of what true refugees are. I believe we'll have to await the election of a Conservative government in 2019 to solve this problem.
For Mississauga Streetsville.
Mr. Speaker, alongside WaterAid Canada and Results Canada, I would like to recognize World Toilet Day. Globally, 2.3 billion people lack access to adequate sanitation, and 1 in 8 are forced to defecate in the open. Lack of access to toilets and proper hand-washing facilities is linked to ill health, malnutrition, and even gender-based violence. Each year, diarrheal disease is a leading cause of child death and will take 289,000 lives. Furthermore, infections during childbirth caused by poor sanitation will lead to 11% of all maternal deaths. Poor or no access to toilets also puts women and girls at a greater risk of assault or violence and increases their days missed at school. Along with vaccines, access to toilets and hand washing with soap and water are two of the most cost-effective health and nutrition interventions out there. It's a rush to flush. Please join me in recognizing International World Toilet Day.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue.
Speaker, the community of Wolf Lake, the Anishinaabe Nation, and the whole of Abitibi-Témiscamingue mourn the sudden passing of one of his First Nation leader, Chief Harry Saint-Denis. Harry Saint-Denis has been the chief of Wolf Lake First Nation since 1986 and was a tireless advocate for his people's rights. He was one of the Anishinaabe Nation's most assertive and outspoken leaders when it came to the need for the government to recognize and respect Aboriginal title and rights. Above all, Harry Saint-Denis was a respected leader, a cordial man, and a beloved husband, father, grandfather, and warrior who will be missed. Please join me in honoring his memory and offer our heartfelt condolences to his wife, Sheila, his son, Bruce and Tyson, his daughter, Tony, his grandchildren, his family, and friends. Kia Pach Kichi Miigwech Ojima Ari.
The Honourable Member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in this House to give my support and the Conservatives' support to the official languages minority communities throughout Canada. Like many Quebecers and Canadians, I am very concerned about the recent announcements regarding Francophones in Ontario. The Conservative Party has always been an ally of Francophone and Francophone communities, and that's why we improved assistance to communities by $300 million. Canadian bilingualism is an asset that we must take care of and that we must protect. We also respect provincial jurisdictions, and it is unfortunate that the Liberal government is playing political games with such an important issue as we have seen currently. We must all rise, regardless of political stripe, and support communities throughout Canada and make sure that we will defend them as best possible. Thank you. The honourable members should abstain from shouting. The honourable member from Saint-Boniface Saint-Vital. Mr. Speaker, on November 16th, I joined with the Métis community in Manitoba to commemorate the death of Louis Riel. It is important for all of us, Métis and non-Métis, to remember and gather on this important day.
Louis Riel was hanged. Riel fought for the government of the newly formed Canada from taking their Red River lands without consultation. His many sacrifices have secured him an enduring place in our shared history as a leader of the Métis Nation, a founder of Manitoba, and a key contributor to Canadian Confederation. Son legs est évident.
His legacy is obvious. In Manitoba, a school district, a college, a bridge, an economic development corporation all bear his name.
Monuments to Louis Riel are a testament to his lasting legacy. As a proud member of the Métis Nation, en tant que fier...
As a proud Métis, it is a privilege for me to rise today and pay tribute to Louis Riel. Thank you.
Questions orales, oral questions. Honorable député de Richmond.
The Honourable Member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, On August 27, 2015, the Prime Minister said during the election campaign that there would be a modest deficit, then a return to budget balance in 2019. But here's where we are today. The Parliamentary Budget Officer, Director, said that we would have a colossal deficit of $20 billion just for this year, and next year, $21 billion. My question to the Prime Minister, when will we return to a balanced budget? The Honourable Minister of Finance, Mr. Speaker, the right question is, where are we now? We are in a situation where our level of unemployment is the lowest it has been in 40 years. We're in a position where we have more people who are working now than in the history of the country. So it is a truly good situation for Canadian families, for middle-class families, and we intend to continue to invest to grow our economy for the future. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, while the Minister of Finance speaks, the projections speak for themselves. The PBO said that the budget, the probability of the budget being restored to balance in 2021 to 2022 was only 10%. We're only a year from the next election, and the government had promised a return to a balanced budget before the end of its mandate. I repeat my question to the Prime Minister a second time. When will we be restored to budget balance? The Honourable Finance Minister, Mr. Speaker, we understand full well the problems with the Conservatives. They want to make cuts. They want to make cuts Canada-wide. They want to cut Francophone services. We understand that. But we want to invest, and our approach is working. We have an economy that is growing, and this is very important to us. It is the most important thing for families across the country with this good level of growth and with a future with many opportunities for all. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Athabasca, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister inherited a balanced budget in 2015. Today, the Canadian budget is collapsing under the weight of deficits that our children and grandchildren will have to pay for. This is unacceptable. Where we are now, my daughter, who was 17 yesterday, will be 45 when the budget is finally balanced. Thank God Canadians know how to balance their budget, but the Prime Minister certainly doesn't. I repeat, my third question, same subject, when will we have a balanced budget? The Honourable Finance Minister. Mr. Speaker, the facts are quite different. The Harper government put us in $150 billion in debt. That's what we had to deal with in the beginning. And it had the lowest growth level in almost 80 years. We are now in a situation which is far different, with investments and a level of growth which is the highest among the G7, and we are soundly positioned for investment countrywide.
Prime Minister breaking his word and failing Canadians is nothing new. He does it all the time. But the fact that he's using our kids' and our grandkids' money to pay for his out-of-control spending is shameful. It's irresponsible for a government to run massive deficits with no plan and no time frame for when they will return to balance. If the Liberals truly care about our youth and future generations who are going to have to pay for today's spending and deficit, will they answer this simple question, when will the budget be balanced?
Hear, hear.
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we understand well the Conservative approach. Their idea was to make cuts. What would have happened is we would have put our economy into recession. Our idea was to make investments. What happened? People had more disposable income. Our economy started growing. Now, right now, Mr. Speaker, we have the lowest levels of unemployment we've seen in 40 years. But more importantly, we have more people working among working-age Canadians than in the history of Canada. So we are doing very well economically. We'll continue to make investments, while the people opposite will think about where they can make cuts across the country.
Opposition House Leader.
Actually, it's not just Conservatives who are sounding the alarm looking for more fiscal responsibility from these Liberals. Small businesses are asking the Liberals to commit to getting back to balanced budgets. And recently, the Institute of Fiscal Studies and Democracy said that the current fiscal policy of this government is, and I quote, without a rudder and an anchor. And now is the time to rein in budgetary deficits. So maybe the minister, who appears to be the minister of no rudder and no anchor, can tell us, when will the budget be balanced?
I'm afraid I have to encourage the honourable member for Winnipeg Centre not to speak when someone else has the floor. The honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, just to think about where we are right now, from a small business standpoint, as of January 2019, we will have a combined tax rate of 12.2%, federal, provincial, lowest among G7 countries, a very, very strong position so those businesses can make investments. We've been able to do that while keeping to a very fiscally responsible approach. Canada has the lowest level of debt to GDP among G7 countries. It's on a downward trajectory. That is fiscal responsibility, but we're able to do it while investing in Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-les-Basques. Mr. Speaker, with respect to the full update, there are disturbing rumors. We hear that the Finance Minister is under pressure to lower taxes under pretext that you have to follow the United States. The problem is that these tax cuts in the U.S. did not create jobs. They largely serve to improve the salary of executives and are going to lead to a deficit of $1,000 billion. Is that what the Finance Minister wants to do? Can you confirm he will not reduce taxes on big biz? Mr. Speaker, that's a good question. It's always necessary to strike a balance to consider how we can ensure a level of competitiveness, but at the same time, make sure we have a tax system that is fair. That's our goal. We want a balanced system that works for the country. We want to make sure we're able to do both things at the same time. That is our approach. The Honourable Member. The Minister of Finance says it's a good question. Maybe he could have given me an answer. Since the year 2000, the tax level on big business has fallen from 28% to 15%. This dead money has been exploding, and it started in the year 2000. These cuts to taxes on big corporations did not go into job creation. It didn't go into investment. It just went to boosting the salaries of executives. Will the Finance Minister commit to not cutting taxes on big business? The Honourable Finance Minister. Mr. Speaker, what we can say, and this is very important, is that it is essential to have a certain level of investment. We need a system that is competitive, but that is at the same time just. That's a very important balance to strike. But we know that with our great situation right now with a very low unemployment rate, this is the time to ensure our future. And that is our goal for Wednesday.
A country as rich as Canada, too many families are living paycheck to paycheck or are living in poverty. And while Liberals continue to claim the economy is doing well, they fail to acknowledge that families in Canada are dealing with record levels of debt. Now, time and time again, Liberals show they're more interested in giving tax breaks to wealthy corporations while telling Canadians they just have to wait. Jagmeet Singh and the NDP have said our plan to the Finance Minister. Will he listen, stop with the corporate giveaways, and invest in Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we will continue to invest in Canadians. In fact, what we know is that approach has absolutely worked over the last 3 years. We've brought hundreds of thousands of children out of poverty through the Canada Child Benefit. We've helped innumerable seniors through the Guaranteed Income Supplement increase. We're going to continue to focus on our core goal of assuring that families across the country are doing well, that those who are challenged have a great opportunity, and we'll do that by making sure not only that they're doing well, but we're investing in our future.
Honourable member for New Westminster Burnaby.
Canadian families are dealing with record levels of debt. They now have our plans, so they have no excuse not to make the right choices, Mr. Speaker. Canadians expect this week investments that will lessen the financial burden on Canadian families and help businesses thrive. Now, the time for eternal discussions on universal single-payer pharmacare has long passed. Canadians and businesses continue to spend billions of dollars on medication for themselves and their employees. Will the Liberals make the right decision and implement universal pharmacare now?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
We recognize that Canadians are proud of their publicly funded healthcare system, one that's based on their need and not on their ability to pay. But we also recognize that we can do better. And that's why that I was pleased in March of this year that we've announced the implementation of the Advisory Council on a National Pharmacare Program. I truly look forward to receiving the recommendations of Dr. Hoskins that will be brought forward in spring of 2019. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Louis-Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, 3 years ago, Canadians were misled because in the Liberal Party's election platform, they said that for 3 years there would be modest deficits and a return to budget balance in 2019. But here we have a huge deficit, and any balanced budget is just fantasy. Wednesday there will be an economic statement. Will the Prime Minister at least say to Canadians when we will get to a balanced budget? The Honourable Finance Minister. Mr. Speaker, we know that it's very important to continue with our approach, an approach that is ensuring the right situation of Canadians Canada-wide. People who now have a good job, we have an opportunity to continue with our approach, to invest in the future, to invest in families, to make sure that they have all the right opportunities. The Honourable Member, Mr. Speaker, in the update Wednesday, when there's an update like this in any business, they have to make sure the books balance. But we know that here they will not be balancing the books. Can the Finance Minister at least tell the Canadians that if they have failed with their promise of 2015, when will they get to a balanced budget? The Honourable Finance Minister. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that it's very important to adopt an approach that works. Unfortunately, the Conservatives in the preceding government had an approach that led to a lot of deficit, but not much growth. Here we're different. We're investing in Canadian families. Our level of growth is the highest in the G7. Unemployment is at its lowest in 40 years. This works. The Honourable Member. Yeah, they're perhaps proud. I think the Conservatives can be proud to have gotten Canada out of the worst recession since the 30s. But this government is compromising our future. And we know that the Prime Minister came up with a very novel economic idea, a budget that balances itself. But budgets do not balance themselves. Will the Minister tell us when the budget will be balanced? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we intend to continue with our approach of making sure that we have a debt level with respect to our GNP that is one of the best in the G7. We will continue to invest in the future. These investments are working. We can see it with the level of unemployment. We can see it with the level of economic growth across Canada, the highest in the G7 over the past year.
The Trust Fund twins, the Prime Minister and Finance Minister, inherited great fortune. A balanced budget, booming world and U.S. economies, rising commodity prices, record low interest rates, roaring housing markets in Vancouver and Toronto. That was a $20 billion windfall for the government, and they blew every single penny. The Prime Minister keeps telling us that the budget will balance itself. If so, when?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, let's consider what we actually inherited. We inherited $150 billion of additional debt generated over the previous government. We inherited an unemployment rate of 7.1%. We inherited a growth rate was among the lowest since the Great Depression. So where did we get to, Mr. Speaker? We turned that around. We turned that around with among the highest rates of growth from G7, lowest rates of unemployment. Mr. Speaker, I'll take a liberal economic record over conservative economic rhetoric every day of the week.
Order. The honourable member, order for Carleton.
Well, when Jim Flaherty became finance minister, he made the responsible decision to pay off $30 billion in debt, which prepared Canada for the great global recession, the greatest financial crisis in world history since the Depression. And that's why we were the last to go in and the first to come out of that crisis. Now, by contrast, this government has a booming world and U.S. economy with record low interest rates, multiple factors with which they had nothing whatsoever to do, and they have squandered all of it. When will the budget be balanced?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, we had a whole lot to do with what's going on for Canadian families across the country. We had a lot to do with lowering the middle-class tax rate, $45,000 to $90,000 by 7%. We had a lot to do with...
Order. Order. I'm hearing an awful lot of noise. Members have to remember that each side will get their turn, and the time is when it's their turn, not when it's not their turn. That's the time to speak. Order. The member for Newmarket Aurora will come to order. Honourable Minister of Finance.
As I was saying, we had a lot to do with the introduction of the Canada Child Benefit, which made a huge difference across the country. But, Mr. Speaker, what we most had to do with is the fact that the average family with 2 children in 2019 will have $2,000 more in their pocket in 2019 than 2015. Canadians are better off. Those are the facts. Those are the facts that matter for Canadians across this country.
Honourable member for Carleton.
Order. Speaker, even if you take into consideration the $800 tax increase on every middle-class family in this country, the tax increase targeted at moms and dads who take their kids to sports, or students who buy textbooks or pay tuition, or tax increases on small businesses, even if you take into consideration the $20 billion of extra revenue that poured into the government's coffers last year, they've blown every single nickel. So, question, when will the budget be balanced?
Mr. Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I guess it's important to deal with facts one by one by one. So let's think about what was just said. What was just said was that people's taxes went up? Wrong. People's taxes went down. What was said that people are worse off? Wrong. What we have is a Canada Child Benefit, making the vast majority of families better off. And most importantly, what we find is that small businesses, lower tax rates in 2018, lower tax rates in 2019. The facts are just wrong. The good news is the economy is growing, lowest unemployment rates we've seen in a generation, and we have much more confidence for the future.
The Honourable Member for BTB, Bay James, Nunavik EU. Mr. Speaker, the forced sterilization of Indigenous women is still practiced elsewhere in the world, and also was in Canada. Article 22.2 of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples requires that all states take measures to make sure Indigenous women are fully protected against all forms of violence and discrimination. Can the Liberals, or will the Liberals, open an investigation and inquiry to put an end to this situation and right the wrongs done to victims and their families?
Mr. Speaker,
The Honourable Minister.
Sterilization of any woman is a clear violation of her reproductive rights. We know that, unfortunately, Indigenous women and other vulnerable women have faced coerced sterilization. We absolutely abhor this practice, and we are working with partners, including the provinces, healthcare providers, medical professionals, to make sure that it is very clear that this should not go on. We are working with the calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to ensure that Indigenous peoples have access to culturally appropriate and safe health care.
Honourable Member for North Island, Powell River.
Can you imagine being told that you cannot see your newborn child until you agree to a procedure that will mean you will never have another child in your life? Or being sterilized with no knowledge or consent? This is the reality for at least 60 Indigenous women in this country of Canada, with some cases as recent as 2017. This is more than just a gross violation of human rights and a product of systemic racism. This is enough. Enough apologies, enough talking points. How will this government make sure that never happens again?
Minister for Indigenous Services.
Mr. Speaker, our government has been very clear. We know that the coerced sterilization of women is indeed a gross violation of human rights. It is a violation of women's reproductive rights. We are actively working with partners in provinces. We are working with faculties of medical education and health professionals to ensure that culturally safe care is available across the country. This is not something that any one order of government can address alone. All Canadians have a responsibility to ensure that these practices never happen again.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, we've learned through media reports that the Liberals are considering a bailout package for Canada's struggling news industry in this week's fall economic statement. We hope this is merely a trial balloon because a healthy democracy relies on a free and independent press. It would be unacceptable for the Liberals to even appear to be trying to influence favour with the media. Mr. Speaker, will the Minister confirm the Liberals will not attempt to buy off the media in an election year?
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, journalism plays a fundamental role in our democracy, and this is why we invested $50 million. We strengthened CBC Radio-Canada. We've been discussing with the media and journalists, and we are going to continue to cooperate with them, and in the future we'll have more to say.
Mr. Speaker, Jerry Dias, the head of the union representing thousands of Canadian journalists, confirmed in a tweet last week that his union will campaign aggressively to help the Liberals in the next election. The very same day he was quoted in the Toronto Star asking the Liberals for more money. Now Canadians learn the Liberals plan to cave to this demand with a major cash infusion for media outlets. Does the Minister not see that this bailout could be easily perceived as an attempt to buy off the media in an election year?
The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'll allow my colleague to amuse himself with his conspiracy theories, but very concretely, we all know that professional journalism is one of the pillars of our democracy. We want quality news, independent news, and on this side of the House, we respect the independence of journalists, and that's why, in our budget, $50 million to newspapers and CBC and Radio-Canada. Journalism is important. We will respect their independence, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, business leaders say the Liberals' anti-energy policies are, quote, borderline treasonous. Brett Wilson says Bill 69 is, quote, lunacy. Nuvista's CEO said, quote, it needs to be completely killed or radically changed. Susan Johns, a British fund manager, said Canadian oil and gas is, quote, being strangled by regulation, carbon taxes, and the inability of producers to get their products to market. So clearly, the Liberals' anti-energy agenda is the problem, not the solution. When will they stop killing Canadian jobs and withdraw their No More Pipelines Bill C-69?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we understand the struggles in the industry, in the energy sector, and the price differential that industry is facing. We're working very diligently with provinces, and we're moving forward on expanding our global market to make sure that Alberta's oil sector resources are able to get to the non-U.S. markets. What we're seeing today is a result of a decade of failure of inaction on behalf of the Harper government, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Lakeland.
But 4 new pipelines were built under Conservatives. Darren Peers from Capital Group, a big investor in Canadian oil, points out the reality that, quote, no major pipeline project is yet assured under these Liberals, and that energy investors are, quote, questioning the merits of investing in Canada because of them. What's certain is the Liberals are driving billions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of jobs out of Canada. Synovus warns Canada ignores these red flags at its peril, and provinces are against C-69 too. So will the minister cancel his job killing? No more pipelines, Bill C-69, before it's too late.
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we saw one of the largest private sector investment in the history of our country, $40 billion investment in the energy sector happened under our government. When Harper government came into office in 2006, 99% of Alberta's oil was sold to the U.S. When they left office in 2015, 99% of Alberta's oil was still sold to the U.S. That's the failed record of the Harper government. We are expanding our non-U.S. market and working hard to make sure it happens. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Alors.
Order. The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, Francophones and Francophiles from across the country are shocked by the unjustified decision by the Ontario government to eliminate the Office of the French Language Services Commissioner and to cancel the Francophone University project in Toronto. This is a direct attack on the Franco-Ontarian community and official languages. The Prime Minister must take a strong stand and convince Mr. Ford to reverse his decision and defend official languages and Francophones. What are the Liberals going to do to protect Francophone minority communities across the country? The Honourable Minister. Order. The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my colleague for his excellent question, and I will be pleased to work with him to defend Franco-Ontarians who are directly attacked by the decision by the Conservative government in Ontario. The decision of the Conservative government, and the reality is, Mr. Speaker, that there is a party that isn't just taking a stand to defend Franco-Ontarians, and it's the Conservative Party. We expect nothing less of the Leader of the Opposition to denounce the situation, to talk to Mr. Ford, and to defend the Francophone community and all Francophones across the country. We are going to continue to do so. Order.
The Honourable Member for Timmins James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, Doug Ford's decision to attack the linguistic rights of Franco-Ontarians is not acceptable. For Franco-Ontarian communities, developing a Francophone university is essential. The Conservative Party must understand that we aren't in the 50s. Look, Franco-Ontarians will defend their rights. What specific steps will the government take to ensure official languages are protected in Ontario? The Honourable Minister. I want to thank my colleague for his excellent question. There are millions of Francophones and Francophiles who will fight with the government, and all those who want to fight for Francophones. I would ask the Leader of the Opposition to talk to his boss, Doug Ford, in Ontario, and to have him reverse the decision on this issue. Order. The Honourable Member for Glengarry Prescott Russell. Mr. Speaker, I am wearing this pin with such pride, Mr. Speaker. The 600,000 Franco-Ontarians are concerned. They're shocked by the situation in Ontario, which will have devastating consequences for the rights of Franco-Ontarians. Canadians acknowledge and recognize the importance of protecting our official languages and rights, and the government has a role to play. Can the Minister of Tourism, Official Languages and the Francophonie inform? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, and I want to thank my colleague, the member for Glengarry Prescott Russell, who is a tireless defender of Franco-Ontarians. He does a great job of defending Franco-Ontarians in his community. We have invested $2.7 billion, including $500 in new money. We are here to ensure that we will be supporting Francophones in Ontario. The Federation of Canadians, Francophones, and organizations that are mobilizing across the country to counter this decision being made by the Conservative government. The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, the Canadian Liberals in power are this is what's happening in Ontario. They haven't done anything to protect Franco-Ontarians. The Liberal government is a centralizing government. They want to control people. They want to look into people's bank accounts, our purchases, withdrawals, what we pay, our financial commitments. That's our business. Is Big Brother a Liberal invention? Can this government, for once, give clear instructions to cancel this gathering of data by Statistics Canada? When will the Liberal government? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government takes privacy of Canadians very seriously and understands their concerns. The head of StatsCan clearly indicated that this is a pilot project. He has also clearly indicated that the project will go ahead only once all concerns of Canadians have been dealt with. The Privacy Commissioner has done the work. No data has been collected as part of this pilot project. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, when Statistics Canada asks more than 500,000 households information on their bank accounts, their investments, their mortgages, the balances on their credit cards, it starts to be a little much. In fact, it's too much. 1 million Canadians are forced to experience this unacceptable intrusion into their financial situation, and it's unacceptable. When will the Liberal government cancel this overly intrusive project that's interfering in Canadians' private lives? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, let's talk about the real facts. Personal information will be withdrawn. Canadians can rest assured that their banking information will be protected and private. Statistics Canada cannot share the information. No one, no organization, no government, nor the Prime Minister can access the information. Canadians' privacy will be protected.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians continue to express their absolute rejection of the Liberal plan to secretly force banks and other financial institutions to release their personal financial information of their clients without their consent. The Liberals justify this intrusion, claiming it will help make better decisions. If the Liberals believe that this surveillance is justifiable, will they explain why they refuse to at least ask Canadians for their consent?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, privacy and data protection are data protection is absolutely essential. And the member opposite knows full well from the testimony given by the chief statistician before committee members in the Senate and the House that he will only proceed once issues around privacy and data protection are dealt with. With respects to personal information, that will be removed. But more importantly, this is a pilot project. No information has been obtained and no information has been provided, Mr. Speaker. Let's stick with the facts, not over-the-top rhetoric by the members opposite.
Order. The honourable member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
The only fact that this minister is overlooking is they promised to be transparent, and they have been non-transparent on this particular file, Mr. Speaker. It was only the media reporting we found out about this. Now, the type of information Liberals want to collect is highly personal. Now, this information is also highly valued by large multinationals who want to sell more of their products. We know that Statistics Canada already sells access to some of its data, $115 million worth last year. Now, will the government confirm today whether or not the results of this new scheme to harvest Canadians' most personal financial data will also be put on sale to the private sector, Mr. Speaker?
Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite continues to mislead Canadians. This is not a partisan initiative. It's Statistics Canada, Mr. Speaker. It's an independent agency that has the respect and admiration of Canadians. They have put forward a pilot project to deal with this issue, but they made it very clear they want to deal with issues around privacy and data protection. And according to Section 17.1 of the Statistics Act, no government, no opposition member, no Prime Minister can compel Statistics Canada for this personal information. They never have and they never will compromise on personal information, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for London Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, while Canada Post refuses to acknowledge the needs of those who deliver, CUPW is literally fighting for workers' lives. Postal transformation is taking its toll on workers' bodies, mental health and families. And despite the Harper Conservatives imposed legislation in 2011 being deemed unconstitutional, this Prime Minister is threatening to do the same, all in the interest of greasing the wheels of commerce. Well, the cost is too high. Why are Black Friday profits more important than workers' lives?
Employment and Labour.
Well, Mr. Speaker, our government has taken clearly a different approach to labour relations than the previous government. We strongly believe in and respect the collective bargaining process, and we know a deal is the strongest when both parties can work out that deal together. For nearly a year, we've been supporting the parties with services, with support to reach a negotiated agreement. We also know that Canadians and businesses rely on Canada Post and its workers during the holiday season. This ongoing work stoppage has had negative impacts on Canadians, our economy, international commerce, and of course Canada Post and their workers. So we strongly encourage both parties to work hard and get a deal.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I marched with my NDP colleagues and more than 5,000 people in Montreal in support of local food and to denounce the fact that agriculture is being used as a bargaining chip in trade agreements. Producers are saying clearly that the lack of reciprocity in standards and concessions made in trade agreements are a direct attack on our food sovereignty. Mr. Speaker, can the government tell us today what it plans to do to stop these attacks on our agricultural producers in Quebec?
Agriculture.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My honourable colleague is well aware that the American government indicated quite clearly they were going to destroy the supply management system. We made sure as a government that would not happen, and it did not happen, Mr. Speaker. But we do understand there's an impact on our farmers, and we are committed to fully and fairly helping them to continue to succeed. We have and will continue to support our agricultural sector in this country.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, clearly, the current government is incapable of providing our armed forces with the equipment it needs. Where is the proof? Well, the government wants to buy used Australian F-18s. According to defense experts, this interim procurement strategy is risky, costly, and above all, unnecessary. The purchase is justified by a capability gap, but there are no documents to prove that a capability gap actually exists. Why is the Minister of Defence misleading Canadians on this capability gap? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government has committed to providing the Air Force the equipment, essential equipment it needs to be fully operational now and in the future. It's unacceptable in the eyes of our government to take risks with respect to Canada's capability to simultaneously meet its commitments to NORAD and NATO. We are convinced that Australian aircraft will meet the interim needs that will last until a permanent replacement for the F-18 flight is purchased.
For Kinderlake Eastman.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Liberals actually have a credibility gap problem, and the Defence Minister has misled Canadians. For months, he's justified buying old, used Australian fighter jets that were destined for the scrap heap by claiming there was a capability gap in our current fleet. Now, detailed government documents reveal that the minister's statements were patently false. The Liberals manufactured a fake capability gap to give political cover for the Prime Minister's naive election campaign promise. Why are the Liberals betraying our Air Force and misleading Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Here, a modern fighter jet fleet is essential to defending Canada's and Canadian sovereignty. That's why we are occurring. 88 fighter jets replace the aging CF-18 fleet. We will come. The Auditor General advised in this matter to look forward to this report when? Tomorrow.
Order. I remind the members for Selkirk, Kinderlake Eastman, and Edmonton West to not speak when it's not their turn. The
Honourable Member from Montmagny-Lillet, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, the government promised small, little modest deficits and a balanced budget by 2019. Now, what has happened since then is that we're going to end up with 18.1 billion in deficits at the end of the mandate. And the question is very simple, and I ask it to the Minister, the Prime Minister, and the Minister of Finance. How can they promise a balanced budget, but when they don't see it happening before 2045, when will we see a return to a balanced budget? It's a very simple question. The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, we know that in 2015 we were in a very difficult situation with low growth, unemployment that was over 7%. It was very difficult for families, for middle-class families across the country. We made investments. Now the situation is very different. The growth rate is among the highest in the G7. The unemployment rate is the lowest it's been in 40 years. This is a good situation. We will continue to make investments in a future filled with opportunities.
Monsieur le Président, l'épidémie.
Mr. Speaker, the Ebola virus epidemic in the Democratic Republic of Congo has intensified since the outbreak is the most significant since it was discovered in the country in 1976.
Turn to the Minister of International Development, update this House on what this government is doing to address this issue.
Good question. Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my colleague from London North Centre for his commitment to international issues. Controlling outbreaks of emerging infectious diseases such as Ebola is extremely important to ensure health and safety of Canadians and citizens around the world. This year, Mr. Speaker, we provided $2.5 million in humanitarian assistance for tackling the recent Ebola outbreaks in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And, Mr. Speaker, we just approved an additional allocation of $750,000 to support infection prevention and provide emergency assistance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-Zéchimel-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, promises, beautiful words, false headlines, but nothing but crumbs for the largest naval shipyard, Davie. But the naval strategy isn't working. There are cost overruns, and the ships aren't being delivered. The shipyard in Davie is ready. This is now an issue of national security. Why are the Liberals waiting so long, and who are they protecting?
East.
The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Defence has identified the fact that we do not need another Obelix as we are building the joint supply ship. We appreciate the work that Davy did on Asterix, but we do not need a second. The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Mr. Speaker, despite mobilization by economic and political stakeholders in Abitibi-Témiscamingue, the protestations by air carriers, and the devastating impact on the economy and tourism in the region, NAVCAN continues to defend recommendations to close FSS night services at the Rouyn-Noranda Airport. Even NAV Canada has admitted that this would simply result in minimal savings. Does the Minister of Transport, despite all of this opposition, plan to continue to follow up on the recommendations by NAVCAN? The Honourable Minister. At the request of Transport Canada, NAVCAN has undertaken a second investigation into the situation in Rouyn-Noranda. The study is currently underway, and we will soon be in a position to discuss the results.
Mr. Speaker, constituents in my riding of Brampton North have identified gun and gang violence as a significant public safety issue which must be addressed. However, it apparently is not an issue of concern for the Leader of the Opposition, who has not yet proposed a practical solution to deal with the increase of these violence acts. He recently visited my city of Brampton and unfortunately proposed redundant, unconstitutional, and ultimately ineffective measures. Can the Minister of Border Security and Organized Crime Reduction?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to thank my colleague from Brampton North for the question and her for strong advocacy on this issue. Mr. Speaker, protecting the safety of Canadians is a top priority for our government, and that's why we were proud to announce $86 million to frontline law enforcement to keep our communities safe. Mr. Speaker, what the Conservatives have proposed is not a real plan. Experts have noted that they demonstrate either little knowledge of the criminal justice system or they're deliberately trying to mislead Canadians. Mr. Speaker, the Conservative plan typically offers no new supports for law enforcement, and it is hard to imagine how they are going to deal with guns and gangs when they appear afraid out of the word guns.
L'honorable député de Mégantic-Lérable.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-Lérable. Mr. Speaker, there were 5,000 in Montreal yesterday. I was accompanied by dairy producers, chicken producers, pork producers, organic producers. They all came together to showcase our local food supply. 5,000, Mr. Speaker, and not a single government representative, none of the 40 Liberal members were there to defend our local food in Quebec. They're hiding. Why? Because they know that they're saving face following a poor negotiation of a trade agreement. How can the Prime Minister explain this lack of respect towards Quebec producers?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture. Order. Order.
Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Colleague's question, but I can tell him everybody on the government side supports the supply management system. It is unfortunate the Conservative opposition does not all support the supply management system. We understand what took place. The government, U.S. government indicated quite clearly they want to dismantle the supply management system. We made sure as a government it did not happen. We also understand that our farmers are impacted by the New Deal, and we will fully and fairly make sure that they're...
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord.
Merci.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Health has decided to attack Quebec's health system. The threat is clear. Either Quebec bans use of private clinics or Ottawa cuts transfer payments. Can the Minister explain what twisted logic she used to reach the conclusion that cutting transfers would be a good idea to meet the needs of people who have urgent health care needs in the province?
Santé.
The Honourable Minister of Health. We offer our condolences to the Honourable Member opposite for his loss. All people need is a health care card, not a credit card, to be treated in Canada. Our health care system is something we are proud of. It enables all to be treated regardless of whether they have money or not. We will continue to work with the province of Quebec and all provinces and territories to ensure that the health care system works well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Député de Rivière-du-Nord.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. It's not by cutting transfers that it'll be possible to work with the government of Quebec. And here we go again. The cost of the system are going up and up. And the government, this heartless government, is cutting transfers. Now, they want to put even more pressure on the public system by banning access to private clinics, which will inevitably have an impact on wait times. Everyone knows that. When will the government leave Quebec to manage its healthcare system and stop attacking people who are using Quebec's healthcare system? The Honourable Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, we believe that it's not acceptable to receive care more quickly just because someone has money. We are working with the provinces to ensure that to resolve this issue, which is unfair. We will continue to work together to protect our healthcare system and better serve patients, as well as to protect patients in Quebec and across the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Regina Louvain.
Mr. Speaker, with a lack of pipeline capacity, the price of Western Canadian heavy oil has fallen to a record low, undercutting employment and public revenues. The Alberta government and industry are considering temporarily cutting output to improve prices, but are concerned about federal competition rules. Can the government assure Alberta and Saskatchewan that the Federal Competition Bureau will not interfere if they coordinate a production cut?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we understand the struggles that the industry in both Alberta and Saskatchewan is facing related to the price differential. We need to make sure that we are expanding our pipeline capacity to make sure our non-U.S. market is expanded. The challenge we're facing, Mr. Speaker, is that 99% of Alberta's or natural resources in Canada are being sold to only one country, which is the United States. We need to reduce that dependency, and that's exactly what we're working on.
Good job. This will conclude question period for today. I have a number of questions, points of order. I will take them in the order that they were received.
The Honourable Member for Ottawa-Vanier. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm asking for unanimous consent on the following motion: that this House recognizes the importance of the Franco-Ontarian community within the Canadian Francophonie and denounces unequivocally the decision of the Government of Ontario to terminate the office of the French Language Services Commissioner and the Francophone Ontario University Project. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Honourable Member have unanimous consent of the House?
No, il n'y a pas de consentement.
No, there is no unanimous consent.
Alors.
Order. Order.
Alors. L'honorable député de Richmond.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska with a point of order. Mr. Speaker, we know how sensitive and important this issue